Believe me, you know when you're being talked down to or treated as an inferior participant. Rather than experience this, most choose to opt out. It's hard to participate in anything when you're at a disadvantage, whether that disadvantage is physical or mental. However, the place where you would expect for people to be understanding or sympathetic, it's at a faith-based environment.
As the mom of 2 boys on the autism spectrum, just getting to church is a challenge. There's screaming, there's a lot of refereeing, a lot of times we have meltdowns in stereo. And by the time I get to the church doors, I'm on my last nerve. It's hard to get into a frame of a mindset of worship when you're in that kind of state. And then there's managing the behavior once you get there. My church family is so loving and so accepting and supportive. And they do so much to help us feel welcome. But there comes a point when just being there isn't enough.
I'm Terry Catcher, the project director for the Inclusive Faith-Based Communities Symposia project led by Jewish Family Service of Dallas under a grant from the Texas Council for Developmental Disabilities with federal funds provided by the Department of Health and Human Services Administration for Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities. Our goal is to increase the opportunity for everyone to serve and be served alongside their fellow congregants, socially, emotionally, academically, and spiritually. In February of 2013, we hosted our first symposium, and we invited Bill Gaventa, the Director of Community and Congregational Supports from the Elizabeth M. Boggs Center on Developmental Disabilities. During his presentation, he spoke about the difference between being present and having a presence.
Remembering the body, helping people to become members again, to be connected to that body in whatever way, which means moving, as people are talking about now, moving from inclusion to belonging. Inclusion's a step, but belonging is where it really is at, where people begin to say, this is my church, my temple, my faith, my tradition. I belong here. These are my people.
At the symposium, we also invited Dr. Eric Carter, author of the book, Including People with Disabilities in Faith Communities, where he pointed out that while most congregations are beginning to discover the beauty of welcoming individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, they still struggle with inclusion.
But when you start looking at things like being involved in a youth group, only a quarter of young people were involved in a youth group. Many smaller number in a small group, very few in prayer meetings or participating in taking the sacraments, relatively few involved in social events in our congregations, very few serve on the choir or music team or are greeters or ushers or participate in ministries to our broader community. Very rarely are they leading prayers during our worship services or leading scripture readings or taking part in youth retreats or serving as an acolyte or server, or so many of them are not participating in the rites of passage that are part of being a member of that particular faith community, as Bill mentioned earlier.
In Islam, it is very, very important to pay attention to all human beings, whether they are disabled, whether they are able-bodied. And this is highlighted in a story which is related about the Prophet Muhammad, in which a blind man came to him while he was busy calling people to Islam. He came and said to the Prophet, "O Prophet, teach me something that God has taught you." So the Prophet, being busy in an activity that he felt was more important, inviting people towards Islam, he turned away from him and frowned. It resulted in a verse of the Quran being revealed, which reprimanded the Prophet for his action. We as Muslims need to learn from this and pay attention to those that are in need or disabled.
Hello, I'm Archana Durga, mom to Ankush. Ankush is 13 years old. He has been diagnosed with autism. I also have a typical 10-year-old son, and we like to do regular family activities. And one of the activities that we like to do is attend Sunday worship services at a temple nearby. But unfortunately, we haven't been able to do so because they don't really have an inclusion program to include our special needs child. So after 3 years of irregular schedules, we've decided not to put him in the Sunday classes for next year. I would really like for my son to be included in the spiritual and the educational aspect of the worship so that he understands our culture and religion better. I think if our leadership is willing to make inclusion a priority, our community is ready to embrace it.
We need training for youth and for church leadership and for youth ministers that will help them weave our special needs children into the fabric of that youth group in that community. And that's what's going to make the difference.
While many faith organizations have struggled with inclusion, others have risen to the challenge with dynamic results.
We've got a Faith, Family, and Friends life group. That's what we call it, Faith, Family, and Friends. And we started about 2 years ago with about 8 families. We were all part of a life group, an adult life group, and we said, well, why can't we start a life group for special needs adults, for Scott in particular?
I like to come to church with my friends.
It's interesting. We thought in doing this that we were going to have an opportunity to minister to just a really special group of people. And I think we've had that opportunity, but what we didn't anticipate is how much they were going to minister to us and how much they were going to mean to us as leaders and to us as a church at large. And that, I think, has been the most tremendous blessing in all of this for us here at Chase Oaks. I
would tell other faith leaders that you just need to start it. There's a lot of fear about starting a group like this. And I would just look for a parent or another leader that would be willing to start a group like this and just jump in.
Before I arrived here, there was a group of young adults who saw a need one Sunday morning when they saw a woman who walked in with a hearing dog. And they began to research what they needed to do to welcome more deaf people into the church. And after talking with the senior pastor, they recruited an interpreter. And that interpreter who came to serve, she began a process that eventually led to me coming to Lover's Lane.
Over the next few months, you will be invited to participate in a series of interfaith workshops to share strategies, learn new ideas, and connect with others in our community who share this mission.
I'm very excited and I'm very thankful for the work that's being done to help families who have special challenges, and I'm so glad that it's a cooperative effort between the different faith communities.
I'm Eileen Chrysler, and I am the coordinator and supervisor of the Temple Emmanuel Religious School Lomdim program. Lomdim means learners, and it is our special needs program, which has been growing for the past 15 years for children in grades kindergarten through 10th grade. Our children are mainstreamed with and without support. Our children are not only included, they belong. They are respected and accepted by their peers, and their peers respect them. When children are comfortable and feel included, so do their families, who now attend synagogue programs and services more frequently. Since attending the symposium in February, I'm excited to join the leadership team for this project. Now more than ever, we need to reach out to religious institutions and break down existing barriers. Join me and other leaders in the special needs faith-based community. Get involved.
Jesus taught his followers to let the little children come to me. Do not keep them away. All too often, persons with intellectual disabilities are kept from participating in their faith communities and thereby kept from growing in their faith. Whether we're 5 to 50 or 8 to 80, we are all children of God who must not be denied a place and a purpose. As persons consecrated, commissioned, ordained, or otherwise set aside for leadership in faith communities, we have a responsibility to lead these communities in becoming inclusive, where persons with intellectual disabilities are connected in all aspects of their community and its ministry. I invite you to be intentional in seeking and assisting all of God's children to come and be included in the ministry of your faith community. The Faith Inclusion Network of Dallas can help you in this community and faith-building process.
I wish people would just come and get to know me. Beneath the shell, I may have a lot to offer.
I think that we want to try to develop relationships with people who have disabilities, and if they see that churches and synagogues and temples are involved and interested in having all people in their community of faith, then their perception of God will be opened. That God has created you and you are a human being. It's not based on what you can do or not do, but it's just simply who you are as a human being, that you are welcomed into God's family.